I have an obsession aside from cannibalism, Mark.
Okay,
Um,
good. I mean, because if cannibalism was your only obsession, that'd be fucked in itself, wouldn't
it's not going to get better. It's not going to lie to you. This is not a
it?
better obsession, but it is
Mm.
one that I've had for a minute. To the point where, like, when I started teaching American studies,
Mm.
I opened with this as sort of an icebreaker. And I once went to a PowerPoint party where I did a slideshow on this particular topic. So,
My face is contorted in anticipation and dread. I don't know what the
yep,
fuck you're about to lay on me.
Mark,
Yeah,
are you familiar with the 17th century bestiality panic in colonial America?
I'm not, right? I'm not. But there were certain words in that sentence, and I think you could probably guess which ones that that give me an inkling that this is going to be a spicy topic.
Yeah, it's going to get weird. I'm just going to
Mm.
say that straight out the gate. This is going to be a weird one.
17th century.
17th century. So we're
So
talking
1600s, yes?
1600s. In fact, our story begins on
Mm.
February 14th, 1642, in the New Haven colony, which is what is currently Connecticut, which
Okay.
is just northeast of me here, or just south of me when I was growing up in Massachusetts.
Would they have had Valentine's Day then? Was that a thing or not?
You know, I don't know. My friend Kristen, our
Mm.
friend Kristen, would absolutely know this because she has an
K-Lats.
obsession, Kaylat.
Mm.
She has an obsession with the true story of Valentine's Day,
Okay.
or of Saint Valentine specifically. But I personally do not know this. And it dawned on me like 10 minutes ago that I should have thought about that, but I
Mm.
didn't.
Okay.
So we're just going to call it regular old 14th of February in the year of our Lord, 1642, New Haven colony. A planter by the name of John Wakeman alerted the local magistrates that his sow had given birth to what he called a prodigious monster. Listen to this description, okay? It's great. It had no hair on the whole body. It's dead, by the way, stillborn pig. It had
Yeah.
no hair on the whole body. The skin was very tender and of a reddish white color like a child's. The head was
Oh.
most strange. It had but one eye in the middle of the face, and that large and
Oh.
open, like some blemished eye of a man. Over the eye, in the bottom of the forehead, which was like a child's, a thing of flesh grew forth and hung down. It was hollow, and like, sorry, this description gets me every time.
I can tell that you love it. I can tell you're into this.
It was hollow and like a man's instrument of generation. A nose, mouth, and
There was a
chin
dick coming out of
deformed.
his piglet.
He had a dick on his face. A nose, mouth, and chin deformed, but not much unlike a child's. The neck and ears had also such a resemblance.
Ah.
So this dead pig has got weird eyes, a penis-looking thing growing from its forehead, and also looks a bit too much like a human child, right?
Okay.
So as it happened, this sow had been sold to Wakeman by a local guy by the name of George Spencer, who, wouldn't you know it, was missing one eye and had a deformed eye on the other side.
Oh, I
So,
see exactly where this is headed.
right, everyone in town is like, hey, this guy and this pig with the penis face look alike, right? Quote, his deformed eye being beheld and compared together with the eye of the monster seemed to be as like as the eye in the glass to the eye in the face. So basically
Oh,
like looking
George.
in a mirror.
Yeah.
So naturally he must have had sex with the pig and this is their unholy offspring.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Obviously,
Obviously this is the only
yeah.
reasonable explanation of what has happened here, as opposed to there's an ugly pig and an ugly man who happen to inhabit the same colony. So Spencer's like, no, that's not what happened.
I
And
fuck no pig.
and the magistrate is like, listen, we know you fucked this pig.
That's how he's. I fuck no pig. Get the fuck out of here.
I'm sorry. Thou hast fucked this pig. And we're gonna hang you for it, BT dubs. And these are the words of record, by the way. He did say, though, that he that confesseth and forsaketh his sins shall find mercy, which is from the Bible, naturally.
Talk about a rock and a hard place.
Exactly, right? So George Spencer is like, okay, I guess I'm gonna confess to
Shit.
having sex with this pig in order to save my life, right? Which,
God,
I
George.
mean, you gotta, are you gonna
And
die
George
over
has had
this?
a tough fucking break anyway with his one eye.
Right, like exactly. This guy already, was the pick of no one's litter,
Ah.
and here's what we get happening, right?
You made a PowerPoint on this.
Did make a PowerPoint on this. Yeah,
It's good.
I'll show it to you later.
Please, yeah.
But so okay, so he's like, obviously I don't want to get hanged, and so he confesses to having sex with this pig. He's like, I totally banged it, you caught me, oh well. Right, well, it turns out only God forgives. And really what the magistrate was saying is like, if you want to get right with God, you got to
Yeah.
confess to this whole thing. So he was off the hook with God, but he was very much still on the hook
With the
with
good
the
people of
courts
Connecticut.
of the New Haven colony. Exactly. So it looked though as if he was going to get off on a technicality, right? You had to have at least 2 witnesses in a capital
Okay.
offense in the court
Okay.
at that time. So you couldn't hang someone if you didn't have at least 2 people who looked on, because obviously, people get mad at their neighbors, they might
Yep.
say some
Sure.
shit,
Sure. Sure. Sure.
whatever. So to avoid that, you have to have 2 witnesses. There obviously weren't witnesses to what had supposedly happened, besides the fact that people looked at this pig and thought it looked like this guy.
The act.
Right. So he was almost let off, but instead they brought in 4 witnesses to his confession, people who had seen when he had confessed this,
They've
essentially.
stitched this fucking guy up, man. They've
Yeah,
proper
essentially
done a
making it
number on poor
so,
George.
yeah, his confession was 4 witnesses against himself. And thus, as per the book of Leviticus, both
Yeah.
Spencer and the sow that birthed the ugly pig were put to death. However, Mark, this is not the last time that this would happen in our New Haven colony. In 1645, another guy named Thomas Hogg, real name,
Obviously, of course.
2 G's, he was tried for a similar crime. A couple of gross-looking pigs were born, and people thought they looked like Hogg, and they arrested him for it. The description, which is like very, very old colonial English and difficult to read, so I apologize if I stumble over it. Thomas Hogg, having been imprisoned upon suspicion of bestiality with a sow of his mistresses for about 2 or 3 months ago, there was a discovery of that which is conceived bestiality, a sow of Mrs. Lamberton's pigging 2 monsters. One of them had a fair and white skin and head, as Thomas Hogg's is. It being considered of Mr. Pell was sent for, and afterward was found another with a head like a child's and one eye like his, the bigger on the right side, as if God would describe the party with the description of the instrument of bestiality. This examinant being sent for and examined about it. So it was even said, oh God, it's so bad. It was even said that when they brought Thomas Hogg near the sow, she was so overcome by lust, she, quote, powered seed before them.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah. In other words, the pig found Hogg so sexy, she came at the sight of him.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wowee.
Yeah, right?
So many questions. Such a lot going on.
Yep. I'll continue if you want to think about it further.
What a superpower to have. I can make pigs come at the fucking just at the mere sight of me, mate.
Oh,
we're
man.
good in the X-Men, mate. We got no fucking openings right now.
Human evolution has peaked.
We'll keep your CV on file just in case.
So, of course, as with any moral panic, naturally, this wasn't it wasn't really about the bestiality. There was larger social shittiness going on here. So Thomas Hogg was kind of like the town weirdo, is kind of like the weird dude who just kind of like walks around talking to himself and, everyone tries to avoid him or whatever. He really did have a bulgy right eye, which it is positive may have been a result of what we now know as Graves' disease. So if you look up like Graves' disease on Google Images, you'll see it's like people have these kind of like buggy eyes.
Okay.
And so that, looking back at what this might have been, that's what they think it could have been. But of course, people at that point were pretty douchey about any form of like deformity or
Yep.
disability or anything. And honestly, best case scenario was that they just like ostracized you for being ugly. But otherwise, they're like, you're a witch or a demon or a changeling.
You
That
fuck
was,
pigs.
yeah, you fuck pigs. And so not only did Hogg have that eye thing, he also had what was called an inguinal hernia.
Okay.
And he wore a steel truss to contain the hernia.
Yep.
But that truss kept splitting his pants, causing his scrotum to be constantly exposed to the townspeople who were,
Oh, Jesus.
frankly, fed up with seeing his ball sack. So they claimed that not only did the piglets bear resemblance to him based on the buggy eyes and the bald heads, but they also looked like his pale, wrinkly nutsack that everyone was familiar with. Luckily for him, perhaps having learned something from the case of George Spencer and other such community outliers who did not fare as well when accused of such things, he didn't confess.
No.
So they could not hang him. Obviously, there were no witnesses, and he didn't incriminate himself. However, they did whip him for general lewdness because, the balls.
Yeah, the balls. Sincere thanks for that. I don't fucking ask me why, but I know somewhere on my Facebook I've got pictures of deformed piglets. There was a story some years back
Not
in
even
the
going to
UK.
question it, honestly. That makes
Yeah, there
perfect
was
sense.
as soon as you started describing George's, offspring, my mind was taken aback to the story of a kind of a two-headed piglet that was born in the UK some years back. And I had a good old look into this, and you get one-eyed fucking cyclops pigs all the time with protrusions on the top of their head.
Okay, so dickhead pigs is normal. That's a regular occurrence.
Yeah, totally.
Even before we started like weirdly factory farming and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's just a thing that happens to pigs.
Something that happens to pigs. You get pigs with one gigantic bulging eye and with like a fleshy protuberance on the top of their head.
Or they're all the lineage of this
Yeah.
particular guy.
The
They're all
offspring
George Spencer's offspring.
of squinty pig fucking George Spencer.
It's a
Thanks.
weird version of holes.